love that new song. Trina called me right after they practiced it, and she was excited about the new song. I said, that was fantastic. They did an awesome job. Awesome. Can I get lights back there real quick? It's the worst of times and the best of times in the Cavaliers season. I don't know what to say. I'm really speechless, but fortunately, I only had to watch a couple of the games because like I said, I was gone last week, and last week we went to Kentucky on vacation, and I figured they don't have an NBA team. They're bordering Ohio. It's got to be a Cavaliers state, right? So and I begged my dad to take us down and get a newspaper the morning after the game, and there wasn't 5 sentences about this game, and I was so frustrated because we had no TV, it was like deliverance out there. Right? It was just nothing, no TV, no. We did have electric. I wasn't expecting electric, so I was excited about that. So I didn't have to watch some of those excruciating games, but I did think about you guys while I was out there. I think it was the second day we were there. One of the guys that lives down there took us on a 4-wheeling expedition, right? And so my dad owns about 100 acres or so out there, and so we went out there 4-wheeling, and we were following this guy, and Jess was able to drive a 4-wheeler for the first time because he didn't have to shift. It was my mom's 4-wheeler, right? So you have to shift it so she could drive, and she didn't want to drive with me then. So what I did is I followed behind. There was like 4 or 5 of us on this 4-wheeler trip, and I was following behind, and we started going through this river, or I guess it was a stream. It was like a river, and the water was 3/4 up the tires. I was putting my feet up on the dash so that I wouldn't get wet. Trying to stay dry, and because I had my nice shoes on, which wasn't a good idea, but I knew I was going through a river. And so we're following, and the last thing you want to do when you're driving through deep water is stop. And so what I was doing is I was giving Jess and all of them a lot of room so that if they stopped, I could stop before the deep water. But I gave them too much space, and I could no longer see them, right? And so I was like, well, they got to be up here, So I kind of sped up a little bit, and I was going through it and barely getting through this water, and it kept getting deeper and deeper. And I was like, they couldn't have gone any further. And it was at that moment that I realized that I was in a familiar position. I was lost. and at that moment, I did only what I only knew how to do. I turned the 4-wheeler off, and I just yelled. At that point, right? I said, hello? At the top of my voice, anybody close. I have no clue where I'm at. And so I just started doing, I started trying to find my way, which may work in Lorraine, but in the mountains of Kentucky it doesn't fly. And at that point, I had made so many try-to-finds that I had no idea which way I had started from and which way I was going. And so I'm just sitting there again. What do you do? And so I thought, Rich is going to be so mad if I don't make it back for church, right? and I thought about you guys. I was like, well, at least I've explained to the church that this happens to me all the time. And so they'll understand that Carson's lost in the mountains of Kentucky. While I think a lot of people would have panicked, which I don't think yelling for help is panicking, but I was in a familiar position. Right, I've been here before, and the one thing that kind of helped me was the fact that I knew that Jess was on the 4-wheeler in front of me, and I knew that it wouldn't have been long that she would have looked back and said, Carson's been missing for a while, right? And I knew that I had family back at the camp and at the property, and that they would not stop looking for me, right? So this is my hope. And you may think this has been like half an hour. This has been 5 minutes, right? And Jess had actually, she told me after, obviously they found me. Jess told me that she had seen me, she had watched me miss the road, right? And she was standing there, she planned on me getting lost. So she stopped where I was supposed to turn off and was waving and yelling. And I was just, just going, and I just missed it. And so, in reality, they were looking for me before I was even lost. And I just, but that's kind of what family does. Family looks out for you, and I knew that was the hope that I had. The hope that, if I'd just been out there with my buddies, they probably wouldn't look back for me. And they would have no idea at what point they lost me. But Jess family just has that instinct to look out for each other, right? To look for each other when things might be getting tough. And it was just, it was, like I said, it was about 5 minutes. And I heard the engines roaring, and I was like, all right. And they were actually coming right at me. So I got turned around, but if I had gone further, I'd been going in the right direction. So, give me that. And I heard the engines, and I was like, yes! They found me. It wasn't that long, and I didn't get bit by too many bugs. And the guy that was leading, he came up and he was driving. He's like, we turned down there, left down the hall, up on the ridge, and you just weren't there anymore. I don't know. Okay. So I followed much closer from that point on. They thought it was hilarious, as you guys do, and as looking back, I thought it was hilarious. But family just does that. Family looks out for each other, and family is always thinking about you and always reaching for you. Now, not only do families look out for each other, but families are there for us to meet our needs when we have them. To kind of, if we're sick, to help us out. If we're hungry, to help feed us. And there's this passage that maybe you haven't read in this context before, but it's a passage that I know very well. And it's Acts chapter 2, verse 42 through 47. It says, they devoted themselves to the